You're listening to the I Spy Spirit podcast, the most epic game of I Spy that you will ever play. I'm your host, Laurence, and I'm your quirky spiritual bestie and coach, and I'm here to help you find spirit, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, in even the most mundane of things. So get out your magnifying glasses and let's get into today's episode. Welcome to the first episode of I Spy Spirit. This is so exciting. I'm so glad that you're here. Today, we're going to discuss a few things. Number one, before we start putting out regular episodes, I want you to have a full understanding of what I mean when I say I Spy Spirit. So let's start there. What is spirit? Right? Because I feel like a lot of us have gone through this collective spiritual awakening ever since really like the last few years, right? But what does spirit mean? And the answer to that is that it's going to vary from person to person, right? So for me, for the purposes of this podcast, right, I want you to think of spirit as little nods from the universe, if you will, little hints that you're on the right path, little moments that seem like they are just so destined and so fated to happen when they happen. I want you to think about, when you're thinking about someone and they just happen to text or call you in the next following moments. To me, those little encounters, that's what I'm talking about. That's spirit, right? And the purpose of this podcast is to illustrate to you, rather to tell you the stories about how spirit just pops up in my life on a daily basis. Now, there's a few reasons why I want to do this. Number one, I'm doing it from a place of complete total gratitude, acknowledging the ways in which spirit really does continuously show up in my life. And so some of you might choose to call that God. Some of you who are more religious might choose to call that the Holy Spirit. Some of you who may not be religious at all might say, oh, that's this entity. Whatever it means to you is what it means to you, and that's perfectly fine. I want to make it clear that absolutely everyone is welcome here, as long as you're coming here with an open heart and an open mind and a harm none attitude, okay? That's all I care about, is that you come here, you take what you need, and you leave the rest, right? Because not everything I'm going to say is going to resonate with you, but I promise you that at least a little bit of it will. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in. I'm so excited about this journey that we're going to be going on. Whether it's God, spirit, universe to you, whatever it is that resonates and feels right for you, go ahead and go with that. And just know that I respect your choice to believe what you believe in. I thought for our first episode, we could talk about what actually inspired this podcast. And I want to know if you would believe me if I told you that this podcast was actually inspired by one of those pre-made carton rolls of cinnamon buns. Not even the Pillsbury brands, people. I'm going to be honest. They were a great value from Wally World. Would you believe me if I told you that the entire inspiration for this podcast came from a roll of cinnamon buns? Because it did. So let me show you how spirit was working in my life that day. So I woke up Saturday morning. There was still snow on the ground. We had our first snow here in New Jersey. And I was like, you know what? I would really love some cinnamon rolls. And so I went downstairs and I went to go preheat my oven, only to find out that my oven was on the fritz and it wouldn't turn on. It gave me like this weird F31 error code. And I was like, okay, so really quick, I emailed my landlord and I was like, hey, oven's not working, but obviously it's a weekend and they're not going to be able to send anybody out to me, right? So I put my cinnamon rolls back in the refrigerator and I'm all disappointed because I had been looking forward to this breakfast, right? And I start taking out my eggs and my spinach and I'm like, oh, it's looking like a spinach omelet kind of day, which is literally every day. So I start, taking things out and then I'm like, I see my air fryer on the countertop. And I'm like, I wonder if my air fryer can make cinnamon rolls, right? And so I go on my phone and I'm like, okay, air fryer cinnamon rolls. And sure enough, as it turns out, if you turn on your air fryer to 350 degrees and you bake them for 6 minutes, you can actually make cinnamon rolls in the air fryer. And so I started to make that, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I should put this on TikTok, because I would have never known this if I hadn't thought to Google it. And who knows, like, it's just fun information to share with people, right? Did you know? Let me know. Let me know if you knew that you could make cinnamon rolls in an air fryer, because I feel like this is not common information. So I started recording like a very quick 15-second TikTok, right? But one of the things that I've been very conscious about on my TikTok, because it's grown very rapidly in the last couple weeks, is that I want to start tying everything into a niche, right? And I'm not really big on niching down, as you're going to see throughout the course of this podcast. My hope really for anybody who subscribes to me on any platform is that you'll see how spirit and the universe or God or whatever you want to call it is constantly working through me. That's my goal, is to just be an open channel for the universe to work through me. And so I'm like, okay, yeah, this is nice and this might be helpful to someone, but I'm failing to see the connection, right? And so I started to think to myself, well, fine. Why were the cinnamon rolls important? Why did you want to have them for breakfast, right? And right away the answer came to me. It was so simple. Well, they were my favorite breakfast to have in the morning when I was a kid, on the weekends, you know? During the week was always like a bowl of cereal or toast or something very quick before we went to school. But on the weekends, I knew that I could look forward to waking up and the house smelling like cinnamon rolls, and it was just so aromatic and fragrant, and it was something, for whatever reason, it is a memory that I tie to my mother being very happy. And now, if you've been following me on Instagram or even TikTok or any other platform for any amount of time, you know that I've had a contentious relationship with my mom as an adult. However, it was not always that way. And so I do have some really positive memories of her. And in that moment, right, in last week, let's give you a big picture. Coming off of having COVID, she had been checking in with me every day. My mom and I live in 2 separate countries, so it meant a lot to me that she had been checking on me, right? She's been very worried about me, obviously. Just this healing that's been happening between her and I as I get older, as I take years and years and years further into my own parenting journey with my own daughter, seeing my mother through more compassionate eyes and understanding how difficult it is to be a parent, especially in modern times, and also having compassion for my inner child. And so ultimately, when I was making that TikTok, I decided that I would put the overlay text at the end as sometimes honoring your inner child means making cinnamon rolls in the adult Easy Bake Oven, because that's kind of how I view an air fryer, right? It's arguably possibly even safer than an Easy Bake Oven, let's be real. So that was my takeaway, right? Like, from a spiritual standpoint, why was that important to me? Well, I was honoring my inner child, period. And so something interesting also happened when I was taking the last clip, and I was holding the plate, and there's 4 cinnamon rolls on the plate, and I'm looking at it and I'm going, well, I can't possibly eat all of these. And then I asked myself, why not? They're not that big. You could if you wanted to. I mean, these are not like massive, you know. Even now I'm still trying to justify it, and it doesn't need justification. If you want to eat 4 cinnamon rolls and you're hungry enough to do so, that is well within your right? So for that moment, if prior I had been met with my 7-year-old self, let's say, now I was met with my 10-year-old self. and she was feeling very self-conscious about the fact that she had 4 cinnamon rolls on this plate. Why? Because again, that light-dark dichotomy of my relationship with my mom, right? 7-year-old me would have been very excited to wake up to cinnamon rolls. 10-year-old me would have also been very excited, but she would have been keenly aware that if she put 4 rolls on her plate, she was going to get in trouble because that was too much food, it was too much sugar, she was getting too big too fast, so on and so forth, right? So this theme started to develop in my life when I was younger, that I was just too much, all the time, too much. And so I had the ability in that moment to allow my 10-year-old self, right, to step forward and be acknowledged and say, hey, I just want you to know that you're not too much. You're just right as you are. You're actually perfect for you. And you're allowed to do this if you want to. You're allowed to eat as many of these as you want, as many of these as feels good in your body, and that's what you should do. And so it was a really brief encounter, right? I'm talking maybe 15, 20 minutes tops between the time that I realized my oven was not working and the time I finished cooking the cinnamon rolls and started eating them, and then recording the video as well. And all of it gave me an opportunity to be confronted with my younger self, right? And every time I'm confronted with my younger self, something incredible happens. And that's so simple, and it's so liberating at the same time. And that is, I get to heal that younger version of myself. And when I get to heal that younger version of myself, I also become consciously aware of how not to pass down that pain, those small traumas that happen when we're really little, to my own daughter. And so I become the change maker in those moments. And it stayed with me. It stayed with me all morning. And then later that day, I was just kind of sitting around and I was thinking about how amazing it was that I had managed to find spirituality in something seriously as mundane as cinnamon rolls. I mean, I just couldn't, it blew my mind. And I started to think of the ways in which spirit and the universe show up in absolutely everything. Later on in this season, I'm going to do an episode about water that is going to blow your mind, okay? I mean, it is really going to just like blow your mind. And then I had a conversation with 2 of my friends, which is going to be like a guest spot episode, about how their spirit, even in fashion, there's spirit in absolutely everything that we do. Every moment of your day is an opportunity for the universe to just speak and work through you. And the only reason that we fail to see that is because we get so caught up in what we call the real world, right? Which I'm not at all advocating, by the way. I'm never advocating for spiritual bypassing. I'm never advocating for people to be in the 5D, whatever that is, okay? I'm very much grounded in reality. However, I think it's time that we find that middle ground between reality and between acknowledging that we do have this spiritual component to our lives that often gets overlooked in the name of income, in the name of getting things done, in the name of getting the kids to soccer practice on time, or whatever it is. We have this ability to just completely bypass the spiritual, and so many of us go through life feeling unfulfilled or unhappy or completely ungrateful for the things that we have because we don't stop to smell the cinnamon rolls. So I hope that you guys appreciate this episode as much as I do. I can't believe that this inspiration came from something so simple. I would love to know what simple things inspire you, where you saw spirit this week. I cannot wait to continue talking about this with you guys and just to continue opening your hearts and your minds to seeing where spirit is at play in your life. Until next time, just remember that I spy spirit in you. I'll see you soon.